Hey, there's your Wisconsin Wine Guy, and we are day 2 on the road. And I'm going to be bringing you some wine reviews on the road. You know, just because I'm on the road doesn't mean we can't have wine reviews, right? Borrow some glasses from where I'm staying, and we're going to do this wine review for you. So for those who are new, these are wines that you can find where you shop for wine. Liquor store, grocery store, wine shop. These are everyday wines, I like to call them, you know. Oftentimes we don't go and we pick out, wines on the top shelf. We go and get our go-to wines, and we go and select wines that are something different, something unique. And I like to call those everyday drinking wines. All right. So I do a review of these wines utilizing the infamous thumb rating system. Thumbs up says, I recommend that wine. It's a pretty solid wine. 3/4. You know what? I was introduced to that wine, or I had this wine at a party. I'm like, oh my God, I have to bring some of these wines home to share with my friends. Halfway, ooh, something was off with that wine for my palate. Doesn't make it a bad wine. You give it a try. Let the rest of us know what you think. Thumbs down, always an easy one. Now, let's get to today's wine review. I've done several reviews on Chateau Ste. Michelle, even the year celebrating their 50th anniversary of being a winery. Chateau Ste. Michelle has a huge line of wines, meaning different label brands. All of the Chateau Ste. Michelle, but the brands will be different with Chateau Ste. Michelle across the top. You know, and this will be their, I like to say their store label here, the Chateau Ste. Michelle brand out of Columbia Valley. But there's lots of wines from Chateau Ste. Michelle, Indian Hills, for example, Yakima Valley, for example. So all sorts of wines from Chateau Ste. Michelle. So please pay attention when you're looking at Chateau Ste. Michelle and what the growing area is. They've been around, it'll be over 50 years now, been around, for a long time making wines. And this year is going to be no different. So we're going to be doing the 2022 Pinot Gris. And I've done the Pinot Gris before. Again, I don't look back and see what I thought about it, but I've done the Pinot Gris before. So I'm going to attach that video to this video so you can get a look at it, see what I thought of it before. And I'm going to go back and look at it myself later. And then the Chateau Ste. Michelle, Columbia Valley Sweet Riesling. I've done the late harvest. I've done the medium semi-dry Riesling, but I don't think I've ever done a sweet Riesling. So that's going to be interesting as well. All right, and that's going to be vintage 2022. So both of these are vintage 2022. And, just to show you this, I like how in the Rieslings, they show in the back of the bottle, if you can see that. They show in the back of the bottle the level of sweetness. In this case, it's going to be past medium sweet, but shy of being completely sweet. All right, so I'm curious to see what it's going to taste like. Alcohol on both of these. The Pinot Gris is 13%. This is going to be dry. And the Riesling is going to be 10.5%. Now, funny thing that I learned about Riesling, in tasting wine, Rieslings from Germany. Alcohol percentage doesn't necessarily dictate if it's going to be dry or sweet. Okay? In this case, it's going to be sweet. But when it comes to German wines, the alcohol percentage can be misleading depending on the winemaker, if it's going to be dry or sweet. Just a little FYI, okay? So, but today is going to be Chateau Ste. Michelle. We're coming out of Washington, Columbia Valley. Looking forward to tasting these. Hey, these Corkers, keeping the wines fresh. Again, I'm borrowing glasses, so we're going to, work what we have here. I'm going to pour the Pinot Gris in the larger glass, which I normally reserve for full-body whites or red wines. I'm going to pour the Riesling in a traditional shaped white wine glass. Okay? Make it real easy for myself. So I gave you the alcohol percentage, 10.5, 13% on the Pinot Gris. Let's get a look at these wines. It's funny. It's clear to a subtle yellowish hue to it, but very subtle. For the Riesling, we're going to go more clear. Okay? Now, on the nose, I can smell both of these actually right now. On the nose, we're going to smell. Now, I'm going to taste this second because I know it's sweet. It's going to kill this one. But since it's Chateau Ste. Michelle, what I say, if it's the same brand or the same winery, let's see across the board what we got here. So, oh my gosh. That smells so good. Like peach, apple, white peach. Apple. It's funny because it has a creamy richness to it. Wow. That's interesting. Just on the nose. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be like creamy tasting, but just on the nose itself, it has a rich, creamy nose to it. Blended with this citrus and apple. Oh, wow. That's nice. Now, for the Riesling. Sweet Riesling, they call it. Okay, I showed you the scale. Okay, now, so apple, of course. Now, this is going to maybe throw some people off, but I'm going to give you some background on it. Apple with a little petroleum. What? Petroleum? So, back in my earlier days of being in wine and going through portfolio tasting and tasting wine, I went to an all-German tasting, all right, after drinking so many domestic-type Rieslings, And so I'm at this tasting, I'm tasting German wines, I'm tasting like, this is okay, this is all right, but it lacks the petroleum smell to it. I'm saying this at all these different German booths of tasting their wines. I want to buy. This is when I was in the retail business, right? So one winery owner and winemaker pulled me behind the curtain and said, I just need to say this to you in this broken English. And part English, part German, understood a little bit of German because I was in Germany for a bit. But he said to me in this broken English, part German description, said, you know what? I just have to say this to you because I've heard you said this and I've been hearing you saying this. He said about my wines. The petroleum taste and smell is a fault in German wines. We don't like that. So stop thinking that is typical and should be present in German wines. That is not a good thing. You may find some where it's like very slight that is there. If you have a very good sense of smell and it's very acute, you can smell it. But it is not a characteristic that we are proud of if it comes in German wines. Changed my whole perspective on German wine, on Riesling in general. Now, you'll find outside of Germany, you'll find that you'll pick up that petroleum smell. In some areas, some wines, some wineries, you get it more than others, okay? All right, so I definitely get it here. All right, as it airs out, it becomes more faint. But it is definitely still there. So, as it coming straight out of the bottle, maybe it's a reaction to the sulfite, for preservation, but as it airs out, it's not as predominant as it was when I first smelled it, but it's still there, subtle, okay? So, now, there you go. So, apple, now it's like subtle petroleum because they have more air. There you go. Now, back to here. I'm still going to taste that second. So, that was my soapbox thing because I never forget a lesson in wine. And that's when it comes to wine. If you visit the countries, if you have a chance to visit the countries and taste the wines on their soil, from the soil and the land in which the grapes were grown and the wine produced, you're getting an entirely different appreciation for wine. That's the difference between people who just drink wine domestically and never actually visited the countries and the regions to try the wines. There you go. Wisconsin wine guy gave you education. So now, Pinot Gris. Pinot Gris, sub-name or second name for Pinot Grigio out of Italy, but we call it Pinot Gris here. But believe it or not, they can produce entirely different wines. Your Pinot Grigio, Pinot Gris is not going to taste the same. Some Pinot Gris have some barrel aging to it, and depending on where it's grown, Pinot Gris will have a much more, like I just told you here, and the nose is like almost like a rich creaminess to it, with the citrus and apple, right? Completely different from Pinot Grigio. Okay, which would be more apple, more fruity, more lime, more citrus on the nose. Okay, so completely different, but it's the same grape, but grown someplace else is going to be completely different. So now, let's get into the taste. We do the rinse first. Step one, rinse, acidity for both. Well, we're going to do for this one first, and then we're going to do that one. Then we're going to see how they play nice. dry finish. You do pick up a little bit of tannins. It's still apple. Acidity is like soft medium, you know, very clean, very crisp, you know, very clean tasting. Again, I repeat, okay, on the Pinot Gris. Let's do one more taste of that. You definitely pick up more of the citrus characteristics when you're drinking the wine, okay, but dry, okay, tell you right up, dry, all right. Now, I had 2 tastes. Let me get the third taste. So I can lock in here what I'm going to rate it. Now let's go to the Riesling. Apple, petroleum, subtle citrus. But as it airs out more, it's more apple and less petroleum. Okay, so that's probably could be a key here for the nose. Let's see on the taste. Now there's more acidity here than here. So give this a second try. Okay. There's the acidity. I don't know if the tannins are carryover from here. They're very subtle, but I pick up some tannins here. There's a sweetness to it, but more like biting into a crisp apple and getting that burst of sweetness from the juice as you're chewing, right? So you get that here. Subtle petroleum. So the secret here in this case is to let it air out. Let it air out a little bit in the glass, all right? So to let some of that petroleum nose and taste dissipate. That changes the whole wine here. Let me pour a little bit more in. Even though on the sweetness scale they have on a bottle, it has a level of sweetness, and everyone's sweetness tolerance is going to be different. I don't find it to be grotesquely oversweet. I mean, there is a sweetness to it, but I like the acidity or the citrus that takes place there. There is a sweetness to it. Some may find it like too sweet still, but it's making my mouth water. I like to use it with food. But again, letting it air out in the glass a little bit, you know, make sure you swirl it, gets rid of that petroleum. It's still there very subtly. Very, very subtly as it airs out of the glass. So let's get straight to it. This is going to be dry. Our rating here. Wow. Again, coming after this one, it made this one non-existent. Like, where'd the flavor go? Or you know, this is dry, but where'd the flavor go? Made it more like bitter, tart. All right. So I have to go to my last taste in that impression. So the Pinot Gris, dry, nice citrus, good fruit, nice acidity. I'm going to go 3/4 from the Pinot Gris. All right. I like the nose, but I thought it would have a little bit more oomph of richness to it on the taste. But 3/4 still makes it a pretty good solid wine for everyday drinking. Okay, you can't go wrong with it. Now, for the Riesling. As I said, for some may find it sweeter. I can't overlook the petroleum. So I can't give it a full 3/4 and I can't give it a halfway. I have to go in between. 3/4, halfway, right in the middle, in between. I still think it's pretty solid. It's not as sweet as what I thought it would be. And some may still find it sweet because they may taste it just straight away and say, oh my God, that's kind of sweet. But you give it a couple of sips and let it just like really, you know, come to one with your palate. It has a nice balance to it, you know, and that's what I find about a lot of the Chateau Ste. Michelle wines. You know, there's a nice balance to the wines if you give them a chance. So you can't go wrong with it. You can find this on sale at $6.99, regular price $10.99. You'll find. Okay, so there you have it. So we have in between 3/4 and halfway on the Pinot Gris, right? And I can't even remember what I said on this one here. Let me taste it again. Okay, I'm going to go 3/4. 3/4 on the Riesling. I believe this is what I said earlier, but 3/4 on the Riesling. I thought it was very nice. Airing it out a little bit more kind of subdues that petroleum, but you can't go wrong with it. 3/4 on that. In between 3/4 and halfway on Pinot Gris. There you have it. Wisconsin Wine Guy says to you, let your palate be the guide when selecting wines and tasting wines. And I would very well be curious to know what you thought about these wines as well. I'll see you next time. Ciao.